Welcome to our 109th podcast. Today, we continue our conversations about stakeholder engagement, concentrating on rewards and consequences to support change initiatives. What's one thing you can do to motivate others or right the ship to keep the flywheel of change from spinning out of control by reinforcing organizational citizenship behaviors and reducing counterproductive work behaviors? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. Harmonious Workplaces was started by independent consultants to explore and challenge workplace issues and to build better ways of working. It's a blend of theory and practice, grounded in real-world experience, working with organizations of all sizes across a wide range of industries. If you own a business, lead a team, want fresh ideas about the workplace, or just enjoy listening to consultants talk candidly about how to make work more effective and more enjoyable, we invite you to sit back, relax, and dive in with us to Harmonious Workplaces. Hello, Harmonious Workplaces listeners. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Rich Cruz, an organizational development consultant, and this is Ben Kleiman, a certified change management professional. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, Rich. Hey, everyone. Doing well, thanks.
Right on.
Let's
All right,
go.
Ben. So we're fresh from a change management conference this week.
Yes.
And
the ACMP Midwest chapter had their 2026 Midwest Change Conference yesterday, downtown Chicago. Fantastic. Very engaging day. Lots of good breakout sessions and keynote speakers and all sorts of great conversations.
yes, absolutely. So many change professionals all in one place. It's kind of nuts.
And yet none of us could figure out how to change a light bulb.
That's right. How many change professionals does it take? Well, you know what? We should have made that one of the challenges, Ben. How many would it take us to change that?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Ben, we're going to continue our conversation today we've been talking about stakeholder engagement for the last few episodes, but you just can hardly say enough about it. But
Right.
yeah, the context of this one, which I really like that you brought up, is using rewards or consequences to keep people motivated, or as we said in the beginning here, right the ship when things are not going according to plan, right?
Yeah. And so it's sort of part of that whole multi-legged stool of stakeholder engagement in terms of there's at its very core, you have communication and conversations, you have some sort of training, learning, development, and then there's some sort of rewards and consequences. And so
Sure.
these things support each other, and when done well and thoughtfully, they can all reinforce each other and really help people to feel like they are part of the change, brought
Mhm.
into the change. Yesterday, there was at that change conference, there are just so many people talking about ways to help co-create, help people engage with the change by inviting them in, by having them co-create the change
Right.
with you. And we've talked about that as part of our stakeholder engagement mini series, if you will. And so all sorts of great stuff. So yeah, this is maybe the third leg of that stool that we can dive into today.
For sure. Yeah. And there's the whole crux of it, right? Ben, is that people they're asked to support change or get into the change. And then there's, what's from a director perspective, what's my motivation?
Right.
Right.
You
Because
have all this whole cast of characters saying, okay, what's my motivation? I love that.
yeah. Well, you're typically not asked to do it for any additional compensation or any other, frankly, any other reward than getting from the loss of the ending from Bridges' model. Again, I'll bring that up probably ad nauseum, but to the new beginning, right?
Right.
Through that neutral zone with no real, this is going to be you're going to come out of this with some grand reward or whatever. So how do we keep people motivated, and are there reward
Okay.
structures
Right.
that we can implement? positive or negative rewards, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we've talked about before, and certainly stuff that I've seen that tends to work well, is when you can reward people or recognize people in the moment.
Sure.
And so you may not be able to give people a large bonus for facilitating a change, for coming through a change, for getting from current state to future state. You may not be able to give them a pay raise. You may not be able to change their benefits in a longer way,
Hmm.
but you for sure can give them a nice little thank you note, a handwritten thank you note. You can give them a $10 card to go get a coffee somewhere.
Sure.
Those types of things. You can recognize them at the beginning of a meeting in front of peers just for something they did that went over and beyond. And those types of things can go a long way, even if they're not major financial rewards, let's say, but those little things can
Hmm.
go a long way. The recognition, the little coffee cards or something like that.
Sure.
Um,
I
I've
found it.
seen it work. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I found it quite effective sometimes when, yeah, you recognize them and maybe you take them out to dinner with,
Yeah,
or to a special
right.
lunch with, either a group of their peers or themselves and some other stakeholder, something that signals appreciation. Yeah.
Right, right. When done well, those kinds of things can be really powerful. I was going to say, I've also seen it work really well when you have some sort of treasured icon within your team or your group. So let's
Mm,
just pretend it's a stuffed animal that is meaningful for your group, or a bobblehead of your boss that's meaningful. And that award goes around from person to person or from team to team based on something that they've done that week or that month or that quarter. So it's like that team won the CEO's bobblehead and they get to put it on their desk for a week or a month or what have you. And that can be very meaningful for certain organizations if that's part of your culture.
yeah,
That
I
doesn't
would.
work everywhere, but it can be a meaningful way and it's fun. Who doesn't
Sure.
like to be able to flick the boss's head and make it bobble a
Right.
little bit?
Right. Hey, you're making me think about Hermie merch that, we could have some kind of
Absolutely.
a Hermie trophy that can be passed around.
Yeah, with all
Right.
sorts of dents and dings and scratches on it,
Oh my gosh.
hard won
That's
learnings.
right. Perfect.
Yeah, for
Perfect.
sure. For sure.
Well, Ben, let's do this. Let's pick up the conversation again, but we got to take a quick break.
Yeah.
When we come back, let's talk about some more of these reward structures that
Okay.
um, we can leverage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have one very specific thing that I wanted to bring up on that. So,
Mhm. Juicy.
all right, we'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I'm Herbie, the HR hermit crab. You know something funny about trees? The most important part is the part you can't see. Everybody notices the trunk, the branches, the leaves, and the fruit, of course. But like a snail nightclub, the real action happens underground. Boy, those mollusks sure can party. In organizations, those roots are knowledge and culture. I'm talking about the things people know that never quite make it into a manual. You know how the tarantula in accounting solves a weird billing issue in 3 minutes? Or how Rocco, our maintenance foreman, knows which machine is about to fail just by the sound it makes? Or maybe how our veteran salesperson, Marshall, knows which customer is bluffing and which one is serious. That's tacit knowledge. And when people retire, change roles, or leave, sometimes that knowledge leaves with them. Then leaders scratch their heads and say, "Huh, why is performance dropping?" Well, if the roots disappear, the tree struggles. Healthy organizations protect their roots. They capture knowledge, mentor new employees, document processes, and build a culture where people actually share what they know. Because if the roots are strong, the trunk grows stronger, the branches reach farther, and the fruit, well, That's the performance everybody wants. So remember, if you want to get better results above the ground, start by taking care of what's happening below it. Trust me, a crab who carries his house on his back knows a thing or two about protecting important infrastructure. Make change your friend. Bye.
And we're back. So Ben and I are talking about rewards and consequences in supporting change initiatives.
Yep.
And yeah, let's just pick it up, Ben.
Yeah, so you
where we
teed
left
us up with
off.
something that seemed like it could be pretty exciting or pretty fun. So you had a reward mechanism or system or something that sounded pretty cool.
Yeah. As we look at from a project management standpoint, right? Especially when waterfall style, the waterfall being the kind of um, gold standard PMI style of project management, right? We
EMI
often
Project Management Institute.
the project management is too, right?
Right. So
And
at its core, waterfall is essentially plan everything ahead of time and then it just falls into place.
right, yeah. So it falls into 5 different stages of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and closing. And within this, in the planning part of this, there are milestones that you can set up, right? And that makes
Okay.
sense, right? We're setting up objectives. We want to hit certain milestones. Even in agile project management, we're looking at within a sprint, you're looking at having some kind of an MVP, a minimally viable product that delivers value to the project, right? To the organization. So why I bring this all up is that if you're setting these milestones and if you're setting these sprints with these features that are going to be coming up, you have an opportunity to do something. Peter Drucker, I think it was Drucker that came up with this acronym of MBOs, management by objectives. So
Okay.
basically, you are setting up some kind of an expectation, right? I guess kind of using some of Vroom's expectancy theory to um, have people expect that when they hit one of these milestones or whatever, that some kind of something will be dispensed. I make it sound like they're lab rats, but the reality is, like, you can do some kind of celebration or some kind of spiff or whatever it is, based on the objectives. I
Spiff?
spiff, like even a monetary reward. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
There's
okay.
my former in a former life, I was a salesperson, and on
Okay.
the sales floor, we
So
were given
some kind of
stickers.
thing, a
Yes,
little monetary reward,
right.
some sort of tchotchke, some sort of giveaway, pens, notebooks,
Yes,
squishy balls, whatever,
yes, and it's based on
socks.
your production of and your attainment of at least a portion of a goal. So management by
Okay.
objective, right? So you
Yeah.
actually hit.
Okay. So rather than get your big bonus at the end, you're getting little micro rewards throughout.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically the concept of it, right? And have you seen this type of thing employed in your workspaces?
I'm trying to think, and I
It may not
it
always be
must have
called that,
been there. I'm
right?
going back a little ways, and there must have been something like that. It's hard though because I feel like a lot of my stuff has been as a independent, and so I'm not as embedded in the reward structure of the folks that are
Sure.
internal to a company. When I was doing consulting as part of a consulting organization, I think it was more annual type stuff. I don't think they did. I'm trying to think, and I don't remember any instances where we had micro rewards or partial rewards based on partial accomplishment of a goal. Or if we were assigned on a project, you'd complete a phase, but I don't recall getting any kind of thing. as a result of that. It was
Mhm.
very much milestone based, but all sort of stacked at the end of the
All stacked at
milestone,
the end. Makes
if there
sense.
was that.
Sure.
A
Sure.
lot of them didn't really do
No, and
bonuses or
yeah, and
anything.
I've certainly seen that as well, where,
Yeah,
okay,
or
we
it's
hit this milestone, and it's gonna be part of your total comp at the end of whatever this
right,
project is, right?
or they don't really do that sort of thing. They just say if the company has a good year, we'll give a portion of the company's revenue split across the organization as an annual bonus.
Yeah.
And so then it's not necessarily milestone based per project or per individual. It's sort of that if the tide rises, we all get a little something. And
Sure.
if it doesn't, then you're just
Yeah.
whatever's in your own individual contract kind of thing.
Sure. Sure. Makes sense.
Which I'll
So
tell you
there
is semi-motivating, but only semi-motivating because as an individual contributor, there's rarely anything you can do that will move the needle.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really like you have to have people understand that it's not just your work that's going to do this, or it's not just your friend's work, that it's all of us having to do this together. And it really becomes a team effort. And we have, that's where I guess, team cohesion is very important in these, it's particularly among the stakeholder that what Alan Landers refers to as a PIT, planning implementation team, or Cotter has as the guiding coalition, right? Those people need to be very motivated, and be able to help bring in the other Cotter thing, volunteer army, right? By setting some of these expectations and letting them everybody know that it's their contribution that's going to help everybody to come out in the end with whatever that reward's going to be. Yeah. What
Yeah,
about
that's interesting.
consequences, Ben?
Well, I was just thinking about your comments around the Project Management Institute and the project management structure of a waterfall project, and thinking about Agile and how you might be able to incentivize people if they do a good job, maybe not every sprint, but a lot of times in
Yeah,
Agile, you'll see a series of sprints, which are these sort of 2-week work increments bundled together, often in larger groupings. And sometimes that could be every 6 weeks or every 12 weeks. And those are called epics. And so a lot of times you'll plan out work at a slightly bigger scale in an epic over, let's say, a quarter,
Sure.
3 months. And then you'll break that down into 2-week chunks, and each 2-week chunk is a sprint.
Right.
That's often how Agile projects are set up, at least how I've seen.
Yeah.
And I haven't necessarily seen rewards at that sprint level every 2 weeks,
Right.
but I have seen, I don't know if I've seen it, but I like the idea of doing rewards at every epic, or rewards after you've achieved, even mid-sprint, something that is really powerfully meaningful for the end user. The whole focus of Agile is on developing something quickly and usable for the end users, and then iterating on that and making that more and more comprehensive. But the whole focus is on that end user functionality and delivery of that very quickly.
Right. The value. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the value from an end user perspective, not from a technical developer perspective. And so I think I have seen it where there's been rewards if there's a drop of value that is very meaningful to the end users. It doesn't have to be a go live. It can be something like, they've enabled the first purple button on a screen that people can click and it does something whiz bang, that kind of thing.
Sure.
That can be very powerful and truly a celebratory moment. And again, it doesn't have to be like balloons and confetti and t-shirt cannons and all that kind of stuff, but it can just be a nice way to recognize people in a project structure that is a little bit more fluid than that waterfall approach.
Sure.
And evolutionary. And I was thinking about the application of that to the change management world. And so within the ACMP, the Association for Change Management Professionals, similar to the Project Management Institute, the ACMP has their own standard for change management, and they have a structure by which one can conduct changes and organize their changes. And so there's the first phase of that is to evaluate the change impact and the organizational readiness. The second phase is formulate your change management strategy. The third phase is to develop your change management plans. The fourth phase is to execute those change management plans. And then the fifth phase is to complete the change management effort. So in some ways, it sort of aligns with what you were saying around the structure of a project from a PMI perspective. Essentially, think about what you're going to do, figure out where you are, create some plans, do those plans, monitor it and control it, and then close it out. And that closeout is often very important too. But there just seems to be a nice similarity, even though it's not one-to-one, where you can recognize people for doing something and accomplishing something meaningful, whether it's in the PMI structure or the ACMP structure, where you have some opportunities to do something of that management by objectives. So we've done a really good job evaluating the impact of the change and organizational readiness. And we've identified a couple of areas where we know there's going to be a couple of hiccups. So let's get ahead of that and plan for that. And as we formulate our change management strategy, and then as we develop our change management plans, let's build that in so we know we're laser focused on these things, which for our organization, our culture, this particular change, we can really positively impact. And if we do positively impact it when we're executing and completing, we're monitoring it, we know we've done some good things, then we get maybe an even bigger bonus because we know we're laser focused on that. So it can be a good way. And then that can dovetail nicely. Ideal situation when you have your project plan and your change management plan and they're sort of locked in. That's one of the things that the ACMP is very good about, saying that these two worlds need to lock in together.
Right.
Both are about delivering value, just in different, focusing on different things and delivering value in slightly different ways. If you can do that, then maybe you have some sort of shared bonus or shared management by objectives, hoorah kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I love that ACMP uses this because it seems to be missing in some of the other models of, where you have this kind of analytical evaluation assessment portion to begin with, like you're front loading that so you can actually understand what those change impacts are going to be, and like you said, you're building up readiness, and those types of that type of evaluation sets up the PMO, right? The project management office. We heard that acronym a lot on Monday, right? So to kind of build on what you were saying, we need to mesh those two together, right? But when you're working with that PMO, that we have some nice KPIs, key performance indicators to tie to this, like percentage of readiness, percentage of adoption, what's the difference between that.
Right. Right. And then with the focus on early analytics and baselining, you get a sense of where's the organization today so that you can understand current state really well. And that way you can, as you monitor, whether you're monitoring from a project management institute monitoring and controlling perspective or a ACMP change management standard of change type monitoring and controlling, you're able to figure out how are you doing based on where you were. And that thoughtfulness, that sort of early thinking, strategic thinking is so important. And I like that both the PMI and the ACMP are a little bit model agnostic. They sort of put out these frameworks and things to think through and things to be aware of, but they don't tell you exactly how to do it. They don't bake it into a very codified way of executing it or tackling it within a given change. They allow for some fluidity. And so you're right. Some of the models do a good job of looking at that ahead of time. And some of the models maybe come in a little bit later and presume you've done your homework, which is good if you've done your homework, but which can be dangerous if you haven't. And then you're just sort of hitting the ground running, activating and doing things, but you don't know if you're doing the right things. And then only later do you realize, well, we did a whole lot of stuff, but it didn't really do much, or we did a lot of stuff and it worked really well. We got really lucky, essentially. So it can be really helpful to just put a little bit of that thought and effort in ahead of time.
For sure. absolutely.
We are way off track as far as rewards and consequences.
Oh,
but
I don't think
I think it's been really good to sort of get that grounding because so many of the rewards and consequences come as a result of what are you monitoring, what are you incentivizing people or consequenting people, if that's a word, to do.
Right.
And so maybe when we come back after a little break, give people a chance to re-up their water and sort of cool off after all of this, we can talk about consequences.
For whatever it's worth, Ben, two rewards I've received during this conversation is the two new things to put into my vocabulary: consequenting and whiz bang.
Whiz bang. I love that. Whiz bang. Yes, that is a technical term.
Right on.
Consequenting, I don't know. I might have made that one up, or I might have heard someone else make that one up. But I like it. Let's go with it.
Let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
When we come back, let's put a bow on this thing. All right. We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I'm Hermie, the HR hermit crab. So, if you've ever sat in a meeting thinking, are we all talking about the same thing? I have a book that might feel very familiar. In my third cartoon book, Trust Fall Pratfalls, you'll find a collection of short, funny workplace moments. The kind that make you laugh and then immediately think, yeah, we do that. We cover things like unclear priorities, communication that somehow creates more confusion, leaders who mean well but miss the mark, and employees trying to make sense of it all. It's basically a highlight reel of how the heck did this happen? But each story also contains evidence-based, valuable information such as simple ways to communicate better, practical ways to support your team, and small changes that make work a little more, well, workable. You can finish each story in just a couple of minutes and actually use the lessons the next day. Plus, it's a cartoon book, so you can leave it on your desk and be the envy of all your cubicle mates. Check out Hermie the HR Hermit Crab Trust Fall Pratfalls, available now on Amazon. Visit www.hermiehrhermitcrab.com or www.harmoniousworkplaces.com/Hermie. Oh, and if you see your workplace in here, maybe don't read it out loud in the next staff meeting. Make change your friend. Bye.
And we're back. So, Ben, we've been talking about a lot of rewards type of, and of course, then we're relating this to project management, we're relating this to change management.
Right.
One of the things we haven't talked too much about is consequences. And I love this quote you put here in the, I'm going to let you say this quote, Ben.
Oh, it's one of my favorite quotes. And I remember learning this as a kid from my, one of my fun uncles. And he would always say, beatings will continue until morale improves. And that's just brilliant. And I was trying to find the origin of that, and I think it's somewhat apocryphal. I don't think there is necessarily a single canonical source of when that started. It probably evolved out of the military. People think maybe it evolved out of the military when you would not be able to get mail if you were not behaving well, or you wouldn't get shore leave if you were not behaving well and you were on a ship. So those kinds of things, and it's just evolved into a nice pithy kind of thing. The other one is another good old chestnut is just to whip the horses faster.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'll see in organizations when leaders are just trying to squeeze as much juice out of their people as possible, and they keep layering on demands or layering on requirements and requests, and everything is urgent, and they just feel like, well, we can't really assign more people to it. We can't really give them more time, so we're just going to whip them faster. And you just look at that and you go,
that's right.
I don't know why you think that's going to work. I mean, you might get a little bit of benefit in a short amount of time, but it's going to end poorly.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, in fairness, I think there are some high reliability situations when the command and control model has to work, it has to be employed, but yes, can that be like your go-to culture? I would argue you're going to have a lot of problems, even within a project, even within a sprint. You're going to
Right.
have a hard time keeping people engaged.
Rarely can it be sustainable.
Yeah,
So
right.
even if it's part of the culture, the command and control culture is embedded and everyone buys into that model because they know it has to work and it has to work to a certain level of quality and there are really drastic consequences if they don't
Uh-huh.
work at that level and meet that quality. You still have cycles where people are intensely on and then they get a break. And
Right.
you're not expecting people to live in that way for endless amounts of time.
hmm So some of what we see from a say is an industrial organizational psychology perspective, right, is that rewarded behavior tends to be repeated behavior, right? So this is referred to, um, I mean, there's performance, right, and then
Mhm.
when that rewarded behavior continues to be repeated, even when it's not rewarded anymore, it becomes organizational citizenship behaviors or OCBs. Um, the when you are just letting things go and ignoring behavior, behavior that's not up to expectations. Um, that behavior could either continue on or it could like slowly trail off or whatever. But certainly punished behavior may stop what we call counterproductive work behaviors or CWBs, but it usually creates some kind of resistance, and hence we've got the Gallup. Every year we have the Gallup study that comes out for the
Mhm.
global workforce, and
Mhm.
we've seen burnout continue to increase. We saw actually it's very startling, like in the United States, like a 10% or 10-point increase in loneliness because people don't feel like when
They're not connecting.
they're not connecting, right? So that has gone up significantly. So having, it certainly makes sense to have people feel like they belong and they're in there. And I mean, you have to correct those counterproductive work behaviors, and there are certain ways of doing that. But certainly, if you can bring people in using positive reinforcement for negative consequences,
Mhm.
the the
Mhm.
evidence is there.
Yeah. And it only makes sense. It only
Sure.
makes sense. I think one of the things that I've seen organizations struggle with is implementing some sort of consequences in a structured and fair and uniformly applied way. So a lot of times I've seen where there are objectives set and there are consequences and rewards set, or there are behavioral norms that are established and you're told what those are as far as when you get hired on or when you join the project or whatever. These are things we expect of you behavior wise. These
Sure.
are things that are going to be expected of you for this project or for interacting with your stakeholders. And where I've seen things break down is when those are not applied and enforced uniformly. And
Right.
so if you have favoritism or if you have someone who's lax or hesitant about applying those standards to the people that they manage, that's when you can start to see breakdowns in that trust and breakdowns in that motivation. And that can sort of spread and become problematic either across individuals or across teams, across the organization. And so I think that's very hard. And it can be very hard for an organization to try to discipline or hold someone to the same standards if they are a, let's say, a high performer or someone who is very senior in the organization or someone who has had a long tenure at the organization and just sort of knows a lot about everything. But if that person is behaving poorly and they're not held to the same standard, people pick up on that kind of stuff very quickly and they
Sure.
realize that that sort of um, dual system is in place and that erodes trust, it erodes morale,
Yeah.
and it can erode performance over time too.
Sure. Yeah, there's certainly in any reward structure, and we see this in human resources when they talk about total rewards and when they talk about um how do we handle discipline, how do we handle incentives, right? That
hmm
there has to be perceived procedural justice as well as distributive justice, right? So people need to see that there's some level of equity that is across the board there, so that there's this perceived fairness, right? Which
So,
is oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead and finish your thought.
I was just going to say, which is that's actually one of the traps of MBOs, right? Those managed by objective types of reward structures, because sometimes um, everything comes from the top down, and
Mhm.
things like speed and output and short-term KPIs are rewarded, uh, but not everybody can keep up with all of that, right? So there's
Right. Or
this
not
level of
everyone is
unfairness.
plugged into those in the same way. You have people that are doing things that just naturally land in
Right.
longer time chunks. They're
Yeah.
not doing something that is week to week or minute to minute.
Sure.
What they do is a longer time frame. So to sort of disincentivize them by not giving them some of those um, very micro rewards on a very quick cadence, that's not fair.
Sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And
So
then, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, I was just going to say the other couple of things, just to add on that, is that when some of the measures that people are measured against, right, are and I guess this kind of goes back to what you were just talking about with procedural justice, is that the designs can be, well, the KPIs that you're measured against could be, and even some of those the attainment of those milestones could be poorly designed or gamed, right? Where there's a level of oh, we've reached it, but we really didn't. Those
I
types
see
of
that
things
a
can,
lot
yeah,
too,
right,
where people will have milestones established or they'll have goals established. And then over the course of a project, those goals are sort of not entirely realized. And everyone knows that they're not quite realized, but there's still this huge desire to have a nice big bow at the end of the project. And everyone just sort of sweeps the stuff under the rug. And you get something that is the project is done, but the value delivery is not quite where it needs to be or where it was said it needed to be at the beginning.
right. Or
And that then,
conversely, you could have
yeah,
somebody who pushes out the milestone and says, "Oh yeah, but we could do better," and raises the
right.
stakes without,
Oh, interesting.
so
Yeah,
it changes the expectation, and
right.
it just adds that level of stress to everybody that says, "Oh well, we're to reach this, we really need to be at this type of thing."
Right. So there's the fairness aspect of it is important. And then there's also the sort of transparency or honesty where you're changing expectations midstream or you're pretending not to see things midstream is maybe the flip side of that.
Right.
And those kinds of things are just so destructive and can really disincentivize people to participate and show up fully. What I was going to ask you, because you were
Yes.
talking about procedural justice and distributive justice, is procedural justice where if something is found to be worthy of punishment, that punishment is given in the right way, in the right time, at the right volume. So,
And in a consistent way,
and in a
or
consistent way. So you're consistently distributing the beatings at the right amount of strokes
there you go.
for each type of injustice. Whereas
Yeah.
distributive justice is everyone is getting beaten regardless of who they are.
Oh boy, I hate everything you just said, but yeah, I guess that's right, Ben.
So maybe to modify our little catchphrase there, It's something around beatings will continue until morale improves for everyone and in the
Equally
right
across the
magnitude.
board. Oh,
Oh my gosh, this is not how HR should be done, by the
no,
way. I just want to put that out there.
that's right. That's right. But
Yeah,
this
like
does make me
hopefully
want to,
people can see we're talking about this in jest
yeah, yeah. It
to
kind of
some
makes me
extent.
want to go and make some t-shirts say, and then add that little phrase there
Right,
at the
right.
same magnitude. So we're being equitable about it, but we'll continue.
Reading equity for all.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, yeah, you could have fun with that.
Uh-huh.
But it's true though. So where have you? So I think where I'm trying to go with this in all seriousness is to try to get to some best practices as
Mhm.
far as um, we've talked about rewards. We've talked a little bit about contingencies or consequences,
Mhm.
and maybe more specifically consequences. And it seems like they work best when they are very clear.
Right.
And I'm going to SMART goals here.
Yeah. And
So when you have
this
something
goes,
that is specific, it's measurable, it's you don't want people to attain it, but you want people to know if they when they have attained something that is adverse, they're
mhm,
going to get a consequence.
sure.
And so it's very clear. There's no wishy-washiness about it. It's measurable in
Right.
a quantitative way, or maybe qualitative somehow if you can make that very clear.
Mhm.
Um, and then it's something where that will be enforced, and there's some time boundness to it. There's some time constraints on it. So I'm not gonna hold punishment for 3 years because nobody can live under that stress.
Sure.
But I will say if this isn't done in this way, and we've agreed that it's gonna be done in this way in this shorter amount of time, then there will be some consequences.
And I think you just hit the where the key differentiator is to whether or not this works or it doesn't. And that is it is those goals, those objectives are not just a top down, dictated to you type of
Mhm.
thing. It is something that is co-created between so there's certainly objectives that need to be met, but tailoring that where the goals are created with the individual to some extent, right? So we
Right.
know from their level of ability, their level of readiness from the ACMP standard, right? They
Right.
need to have
They're
that.
like right. Do they have the knowledge, the skills, the abilities to do that?
Yeah,
Because then if they don't, you're setting them up for failure. If they
sure,
do, you're setting them up for success. That's
for
great.
sure. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
there's some where I think where you're going is there's some shared either co-creation of the
Mhm.
rewards and consequences, or there's some shared alignment there. So even
Yes,
if you can't
alignment. Yeah,
come in and co-create everything, at least when you come in as a doer person, you're saying, okay, I agree that this is the rewards and consequences structure that I'm going to be held to. I feel like it's appropriate. I feel like it's fair. I'm gonna go in and fully participate.
yes, and it's that agreement that creates the psychological contract that somebody's like,
Right.
I am part of this. I am going to work towards attaining these goals,
Right.
and yeah, so that makes a lot of
And
sense.
there has to be something in that agreement where if it changes or if there's something that shifts, both sides have to acknowledge that. So if
Right.
if the situation on the ground changes and the prior goals are no longer appropriate, both parties have to realign to that.
Yeah.
Or if the supervisor, the manager, the leader suddenly shifts midstream and says, I'm going to hold you to a different standard. The doer person has to be able to say and have the safety to say, wait a minute, that's not what we agreed.
Hmm.
We can renegotiate a contract here, but
Sure.
you can't just impose a whole new way of monitoring and measuring without my agreement to that.
Sure.
And that is like HR graduate level because I've rarely seen that.
Sure. Yep. Agree. And at the same time, a lot of the times when we're getting hired into a position, right, we go through that step of negotiation, right? Negotiating what our rewards are going to be and all that. And then when we get into working within an organization, that kind of getting hired again into some, change or whatever doesn't really get added into the mix, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Ben, we're at that time, man. So I mean, we could do a whole lot more, and I'm sure we're gonna have people say, something about some of this this podcast, which we love. So please let us know,
Yes,
comments,
please do
share.
send us feedback.
Yes.
No horses were whipped in the filming of this episode.
That's right, absolutely. But we did learn we did learn a couple of really, really nice words. I'm gonna I I appreciate that, Ben. My vocabulary
Well, if nothing else, we had some fun.
That's right.
Well, that's great.
Right. All right. So well, we all have a whiz bang rest of our week. Until we meet again, make change your friend. Thanks for listening to Harmonious Workplaces. You can find all episodes, resources, and ways to connect with us at www.harmoniousworkplaces.com. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love your feedback. Please rate, review, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And don't forget to add Harmonious Workplaces to your favorites so you're notified when new episodes are released. Again, visit us at www.harmoniousworkplaces.com.